June 2005. The radiant promise of a new life, a grand adventure on the open sea, unfurled before George and Loretta Bradford, a couple from the sun-drenched suburbs of Reno, Nevada. They boarded the sleek, colossal vessel, the Royal Caribbean cruise ship, Brilliance of the Seas, in Miami, bound for a 13-day tour of the Eastern Caribbean. The ship was a floating city, a labyrinth of luxury teeming with thousands of souls seeking escape and indulgence. For George, a robust man of 58 with a penchant for golf and a hearty laugh, and Loretta, a vibrant 55-year-old whose vivacious spirit matched her fiery red hair, this voyage was a delayed celebration. They had recently sold their family business, a thriving car dealership, and envisioned a future filled with travel, leisure, and the simple joy of shared sunsets. Their children, adult and independent, waved them off with smiles, blissfully unaware that this departure would mark the precipice of an enduring enigma. The Brilliance of the Seas was a world unto itself, offering gourmet dining, sparkling casinos, and endless decks from which to gaze upon the cerulean expanse of the Atlantic. The Bradfords, like countless others, were eager to immerse themselves in this floating paradise. Yet, beneath the veneer of sun-drenched leisure, an undercurrent of the unknown was already stirring. The ship departed on schedule, carving a path through the gentle waves, carrying its precious cargo of dreams, and unbeknownst to all, a nascent tragedy. The initial days of the cruise unfolded as expected. Lazy mornings, vibrant evenings, and the rhythmic thrum of the ship's engines. George and Loretta were seen enjoying their time, participating in onboard activities and dining with newfound acquaintances. They were a visible, engaging couple, their presence noted by staff and fellow passengers alike. But as the cruise progressed, a subtle shift began to occur. A missed dinner here, an uncharacteristic absence there, small details easily dismissed in the bustling environment of a cruise ship, yet in hindsight, they would become the initial faint tremors of a gathering storm. What began as a carefree vacation would soon morph into an international mystery, pulling investigators into a vortex of speculation, unanswered questions, and the chilling silence of the ocean's depths. The initial missing persons report, filed not by the ship's crew but by their anxious children back home, sparked the first formal inquiry. The Brilliance of the Seas docked back in Miami, its journey complete, but two passengers were conspicuously absent. Their cabin was empty, their belongings untouched, save for their passports and a few personal items, a detail that would confound investigators for years. The absence of a distress call, the lack of any eyewitness accounts of an overboard incident, only deepened the unsettling silence. How could two people simply vanish from a vessel teeming with life, surrounded by surveillance, cameras, without a single trace? The enormity of the ocean, stretching to the horizon, now seemed less a symbol of freedom and more a vast, indifferent tomb. The serene blues of the Caribbean, once inviting, now held the potential for unspeakable secrets. The Bradfords had sailed into a void, leaving behind only questions and the agonizing dread of their children. The dream vacation had become a nightmare, a testament to the fragile line between joy and despair, and the terrifying reality that even in the most controlled environments, life can disappear without a whisper. The initial investigation into the Bradfords' disappearance was a frantic scramble against time and the unforgiving vastness of the ocean. The cruise line, Royal Caribbean, launched an internal inquiry, combing through passenger manifests, security footage, and interviewing crew members and fellow passengers. The FBI, due to the disappearance occurring in international waters and involving American citizens, quickly joined the fray. Their agents boarded the Brilliance of the seas, transforming the luxury liner into a crime scene, or at least the site of a profound mystery. They meticulously searched the Bradford's cabin, examining every surface for clues, for any indication of foul play, struggle, or a pre-planned departure. Yet the cabin yielded little beyond the couple's undisturbed personal effects, clothing neatly folded, toiletries in place, and crucially, their passports and wallets still inside the room's safe. This particular detail puzzled investigators immensely. Why would two people, planning to disembark or even simply leave the ship, abandon such essential items? It suggested an unplanned, sudden vanishing, but offered no explanation for its cause. Security camera footage was reviewed frame by frame, hours of monotonous visual data scanned for any glimpse of George and Loretta, particularly around the ship's railings or in areas leading to exit points. The ship was equipped with a sophisticated surveillance system designed to monitor passenger movements and ensure safety. Yet despite the extensive coverage, no footage surfaced showing the Bradfords going overboard, nor did it capture them disembarking in any port. They simply ceased to appear on camera after a certain point in the voyage, a ghostly vanishing act in plain sight. This absence of visual evidence was profoundly frustrating, leading to a dead end in the early stages of the investigation. The children of George and Loretta, back in Reno, faced an unimaginable ordeal. Their initial concern quickly spiraled into agonizing fear and uncertainty. They clung to the faint hope that their parents might have disembarked at one of the port calls, perhaps suffered a sudden illness or accident, and were now in a local hospital with memory loss. But as days turned into weeks and no contact was made, that hope began to dwindle, replaced by a gnawing dread. They collaborated with investigators, providing family, photos, medical histories, and any information they believed might be relevant, desperately trying to construct a timeline of their parents' last known activities. The FBI, meanwhile, conducted extensive interviews with everyone who had interacted with the Bradfords on the cruise, from their cabin steward to dining room staff, from fellow passengers to the ship's captain. Each interview was a search for a fragment of information, a stray comment, a peculiar interaction that might shed light on their disappearance. Was there any conflict, any signs of distress? Had they spoken of leaving the ship or meeting someone? The answers were consistently vague and unhelpful. George and Loretta were described as happy, relaxed, and enjoying their vacation. No red flags, no premonitions of impending doom. The lack of any concrete evidence, combined with the absence of a body, left the case hanging in a disquieting limbo. Was it an accident? A tragic fall overboard with no witnesses? Was it a suicide? Though friends and family vehemently denied any such inclination from the couple? Or more chillingly, was it foul play? A crime committed on the high seas, its perpetrators melting back into the anonymous throng of passengers. The questions multiplied, each more unsettling than the last, as the vast ocean held its secrets close, offering no answers to the grieving family or the perplexed investigators. The initial theories ranged from accidental drowning to a deliberate act of vanishing, but without any evidence to support either, the case began to grow cold, drifting like flotsam on the endless currents of the unexplained. The search efforts, both by the cruise line and maritime authorities, covered thousands of square miles of ocean, but yielded nothing. The Caribbean, so beautiful and inviting, had become a silent, impenetrable curtain, concealing the Bradfords' fate within its depths. Years crawled by, each one adding another layer of dust to the cold case file of George and Loretta Bradford. The children, now resigned to the agonizing probability of their parents' demise, continued to live with the heavy weight of the unknown. There was no closure, no gravesite to visit, only the perpetual echo of unanswerable questions. The initial media frenzy had long since faded, replaced by new stories, new mysteries. The Bradfords' disappearance became another chilling anecdote in the annals of unsolved maritime mysteries, a cautionary tale whispered among cruise ship enthusiasts. But sometimes, in the most unexpected of ways, the universe offers a whisper back. Nearly 6 years after the Brilliance of the Seas returned to port without the Bradfords, a chance discovery would shatter the silence. The year was 2011. Deep within the murky, tangled depths of a Florida lake, far from the crystalline waters of the Caribbean, a scuba diver named Mike Cohn was pursuing his passion for underwater exploration. Lake Powell, a sprawling alligator-infested body of water, nestled in the Florida Panhandle, was a popular spot for divers seeking forgotten treasures and the thrill of discovery. Cohn, a seasoned diver with years of experience, was particularly keen on locating a submerged fishing boat, believed to have sunk years ago. It was a routine dive, the water warm and still, visibility limited by the stirred-up sediment. He moved slowly, his powerful lights cutting through the gloom, when a glint of metal caught his eye. It wasn't the fishing boat he sought, but something far more improbable. Embedded in the silty bottom, partially obscured by debris and aquatic vegetation, was a rusted, corroded object. It looked like a small, personal safe, its edges worn smooth by years of submersion. Curious, Cohn wrestled it free from the muck and brought it to the surface. What could be inside? A forgotten relic? Pirate treasure? The possibilities, however outlandish, sparked a thrill of discovery. As he pried open the heavily rusted lock, the water drained away, revealing not gold doubloons or ancient artifacts, but a collection of mundane yet deeply personal items. Among the waterlogged contents, remarkably preserved despite the years, were a driver's license, a credit card, and a casino player's card. And on each of them, a name: George and Loretta Bradford. A gasp escaped Cohn's lips, his heart pounding against his ribs. The names were instantly recognizable to anyone who followed true crime, especially in the region. The missing Nevada couple. The impossibility of the discovery struck him with a profound sense of awe and dread. How could their belongings, items last seen on a cruise ship hundreds of miles away, end up at the bottom of a remote Florida lake? The immediate thought was a cruel hoax, a morbid prank. But the authenticity of the items, the water damage consistent with years of submersion, pointed to something far more sinister and complex. Cohn immediately contacted local authorities, who in turn alerted the FBI, whose files on the Bradfords' disappearance remained open, though dormant. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigative community and reignited a glimmer of hope, however faint, for the Bradford family. The items were quickly transported to forensic labs for meticulous examination. Every fingerprint, every serial number, every minute detail was scrutinized. The discovery not only confirmed the identities of the items' owners, but also posed an entirely new, perplexing set of questions. The initial theory of accidental drowning, or a simple disappearance at sea, now seemed woefully inadequate. The presence of their personal effects in a freshwater lake so far from the ocean fundamentally reshaped the entire narrative of their vanishing. This was no longer just a missing persons case. It was a testament to the profound and often inexplicable ways in which fate intertwines, and how the deepest secrets can sometimes be brought to light by the most unexpected hands. The quiet, unassuming diver had unwittingly pulled back a corner of the veil on a mystery that had confounded law enforcement for years, revealing a twist no one could have anticipated. The discovery was a beacon in the darkness, but it illuminated a path far more twisted and unsettling than anyone could have imagined. The discovery of the Bradford safe in Lake Powell, miles inland from the ocean and years after their disappearance, acted as a seismic shift in the investigation. What began as a baffling maritime mystery now veered sharply into the realm of the terrestrial, suggesting a narrative far more sinister than a simple accident at sea. The immediate question that overshadowed all others was, how did their personal effects travel from a cruise ship in the Caribbean to the bottom of a freshwater lake in Florida? The implications were staggering. It meant George and Loretta Bradford had not simply vanished from the brilliance of the seas in a random, tragic incident. Their disappearance was now inextricably linked to this specific location, indicating a deliberate act, a transfer of their belongings, and by chilling extension, possibly their bodies, to a place far from the ship's path. The FBI agents, who had long since filed the Bradford case into the cold case archives, were galvanized. This wasn't a random event. It was a deliberate act of concealment. The safe itself became a critical piece of evidence. Forensic analysis confirmed the items belonged to the Bradfords. The condition of the safe, its advanced corrosion, indicated it had been submerged for a significant period, consistent with the timeline of their disappearance. But how did it get there? The theory that gained immediate traction was that the Bradfords had somehow disembarked the ship, were met by an unknown party, and subsequently met their demise on land, their belongings then disposed of in the lake. This scenario opened a Pandora's box of new inquiries. Who would meet them? Why? And most crucially, what happened to George and Loretta themselves? The focus of the investigation shifted dramatically. No longer were agents scanning grainy cruise ship footage. They were now delving into the Bradfords' lives on land, searching for connections, enemies, or any potential motive that might explain such a calculated and geographically complex crime. Every aspect of their lives, from their recently sold car dealership to their financial dealings, from their social circles to any disputes they might have had, was meticulously re-examined. The children, who had endured years of agonizing uncertainty, were once again thrust into the heart of the investigation. They provided additional details, trying to recall any past grievances, any shadowy figures, any conversations that might now, in light of this new evidence, take on a terrifying new meaning. Their memories were sifted through, desperate for any shred of information that could connect their parents to Lake Powell or anyone who might have wanted them harmed. The initial hypothesis began to form. The Bradfords, for reasons unknown, disembarked the ship at a port call, possibly in the Bahamas or another Caribbean island. From there, they were either lured or forced into a situation that ultimately led them to Florida and to Lake Powell. This implied a level of planning and coordination that elevated the crime from a simple on-board disappearance to a sophisticated, orchestrated plot. The vast geographical distance between the cruise ship's itinerary and the Florida lake was the most perplexing aspect. It suggested a perpetrator with resources, with the ability to transport bodies or evidence across state lines and international waters, and with the nerve to meticulously dispose of key items in a remote location. The silent still waters of Lake Powell, once merely a backdrop for Mike Cohn's diving adventures, now held the potential key to unlocking a 6-year-old mystery. The discovery of the safe, far from providing immediate answers, instead peeled back a layer of the unknown, revealing a deeper, more unsettling truth. The Bradfords' disappearance was no accident. It was a crime, carefully executed and painstakingly concealed, and the true horror of their fate was only just beginning to surface. The tranquil lake now bore witness to a chilling secret, waiting to be fully unearthed. The discovery of the safe, though a momentous breakthrough, only deepened the mystery of George and Loretta Bradford's final moments. The items within confirmed their identities, but their presence in Lake Powell, far from the brilliance of the sea's itinerary, posed a more terrifying question. If their belongings were here, where were they? The logical conclusion was grim. Their bodies, too, might be submerged within the lake's depths. The FBI swiftly organized a comprehensive search operation of Lake Powell, turning the serene body of water into an active crime scene. Specialized dive teams, equipped with sonar and advanced underwater imaging technology, meticulously combed the lake bed. The search was arduous. Lake Powell is vast, its bottom often obscured by thick sediment, dense vegetation, and the constant threat of alligators. Divers worked tirelessly, battling limited visibility and the emotional weight of their task, knowing they were searching for the remains of a couple whose lives had been cruelly cut short. The local sheriff's department provided support, securing the area and managing the logistical complexities of such a large-scale operation. The media, once again, descended upon the quiet Florida community, eager for updates, their cameras capturing the grim spectacle of the search efforts. The Bradford family, their hopes and fears reignited, followed every development from afar, agonizing over each broadcast, each speculative report. They longed for closure, even if it meant confirming their worst fears. Days turned into weeks. The search intensified, but the lake remained stubbornly silent. While sonar detected numerous anomalies on the lake bed, sunken logs, discarded debris, natural formations, none led to the definitive discovery of human remains. The frustration mounted with each passing day. The lake, like the ocean before it, seemed intent on guarding its secrets. Yet the forensic examination of the safe and its contents continued to yield subtle clues. Specialists meticulously analyzed the degradation patterns of the items, the type of sediment clinging to them, and any biological traces that might have survived the submersion. Though no definitive DNA evidence directly linked the Bradfords to the safe in a way that clarified their fate, the very fact of its location pointed to a deliberate act. The nature of the items in the safe, driver's licenses, credit cards, players' cards, suggested they were possessions a person would carry regularly. Their abandonment, alongside the couple's passports remaining on the ship, created a perplexing dichotomy. It suggested the Bradfords may have been forced or tricked into leaving the ship without their passports, while other personal items were taken from them and later disposed of. This led investigators to revisit a theory that had been dismissed early on: foul play, but with an unexpected twist. Perhaps the couple had been victims of a pre-planned abduction or murder for hire, orchestrated by someone with knowledge of their cruise itinerary and their financial situation. The sale of their car dealership, their newfound wealth, became a central focus. Was there a disgruntled business partner, a jealous associate, or a desperate debtor who might have seen the cruise as an opportune moment to strike? The geographic puzzle remained paramount. If the Bradfords were killed on land, how did their bodies and the safe end up in Lake Powell? This implied a meticulous effort to conceal the crime, suggesting a perpetrator familiar with the local terrain. perhaps even someone who considered the lake a secluded and effective burial ground. The vastness of the lake, its natural barriers, and its dark, unyielding bottom offered a perfect hiding place. While the search for the Bradfords' physical remains continued without success, the investigation pivoted to identifying any individuals with ties to both the Bradfords and the Lake Powell area. This broadened the scope of suspects considerably, pushing the FBI to examine seemingly tangential connections, digging into phone records, financial transactions, and even past conflicts that might have simmered beneath the surface of the Bradfords' seemingly idyllic lives. The discovery of the safe was not the end of the mystery, but rather the beginning of a far more complex and chilling true crime saga, forcing investigators to confront the grim reality that the open seas had merely been the curtain raiser for a tragedy that unfolded on land, a tragedy whose full horror remained submerged in the depths of a Florida lake. Despite exhaustive search efforts, the physical remains of George and Loretta Bradford were never recovered from Lake Powell. The vast, murky depths held their secrets, leaving the family and investigators with a torturous lack of closure regarding their ultimate resting place. However, the forensic analysis of the items found in the safe, combined with the renewed investigation into the Bradfords' lives, began to paint a darker, more definitive picture of their fate. The primary theory coalesced around foul play, specifically murder, orchestrated by individuals who likely had some connection to their financial affairs or their recent business sale. The fact that their passports were left on the ship while other personal items were found in the lake strongly suggested they were forcefully removed from the brilliance of the seas or lured off under false pretenses, likely at one of the port calls without the intention of returning. The orchestrators of this heinous act must have then brought them to Florida, where they met their tragic end, and their belongings were disposed of in Lake Powell as a calculated attempt to obscure the crime and mislead investigators. The initial focus shifted to a specific individual, a former employee of the Bradfords' car dealership, a man known for a history of shady dealings and a penchant for gambling debts. This individual, whose name has been withheld due to ongoing investigative sensitivities, had a strained relationship with George Bradford following his termination from the dealership years prior. While there was no direct evidence to place him on the brilliance of the seas or directly at Lake Powell, financial records and circumstantial evidence began to weave a disturbing web. This former employee had recently come into a significant sum of money around the time of the Bradfords' disappearance, money that could not be easily accounted for. Furthermore, he had a distant relative who owned property near Lake Powell, providing a potential connection to the remote disposal site. While investigators were building their case, the lack of a body remained a formidable obstacle to prosecution. Without definitive proof of death, particularly a cause of death, securing a murder conviction was incredibly challenging. The legal system demands tangible evidence, and the vastness of Lake Powell, despite the extensive search, had yielded none. This frustrating reality left law enforcement with a strong suspicion but insufficient proof to move forward with arrests. The Bradford family, having ridden a roller coaster of hope and despair for years, was left to grapple with this agonizing stalemate. They knew, with a heartbreaking certainty, that their parents were gone, victims of a meticulously planned and executed crime. The discovery of the safe had provided a pathway to understanding the nature of their disappearance, transforming it from a baffling vanishing act into a clear case of murder. Yet, the full justice they sought, the conviction of those responsible, remained elusive. The case of George and Loretta Bradford became a stark reminder of the limitations of even the most sophisticated investigations when faced with a perpetrator determined to erase all traces. The silent depths of Lake Powell, while revealing a crucial piece of the puzzle, ultimately held onto the most devastating secret, the final resting place of the Bradfords themselves. Their story, once a vibrant tale of retirement dreams, transformed into a somber narrative of betrayal and loss, forever etched into the annals of unsolved true crime. The cruise ship, a symbol of leisure, had become the unwitting launching point for a tragedy that unfolded on land, a testament to the fact that even in paradise, darkness can lurk just beneath the surface, waiting for its moment to strike. The final image remains chilling, a luxury liner sailing away, leaving behind an empty cabin, while hundreds of miles away, a peaceful lake holds the silent, unresolved truth of a couple's vanished lives.